Where there is charity and wisdom, there is neither fear nor ignorance. Where there is patience and humility, there is neither anger nor disturbance. Where there is poverty with joy, there is neither greed nor materialism. Where there is rest and meditation, there is neither anxiety nor restlessness. Where there is a heart full of mercy and discernment, there is neither excess nor hardness of heart. The words of our seraphic father St. Francis in Admonition number 28. The journey is inwards, returning to the cave of the heart. It is in the gloom and the darkness that we find our path back to the light gifted to us at our birthing. It is here that we seek out the weeds and the moss, the lichen and all the other fungi that obscure our vision. Here in this corner a little bit of vanity, over there some anger, resentment and spite. Perhaps overhead that anxiety that gnaws at our consciousness. This is not a path we would so freely choose, to look upon what we would rather not see. The first step always the hardest. Humility and vulnerability in that place of unknowing. This is the interior way, the prayer in the cave of the heart, and that universal call to contemplation, followed by the little man from Assisi, St. Francis. Yet in every group, in every association, and most assuredly in every religious gathering, our actions show contempt for this way. Here we find the expert on all things, from constitutional law, microbiology, etymology, and of course all things orthodox. They know it all. It is precisely here that we must face the great paradox within each one of us. When I do not know that I do not know, I presume to know it all there is to know. When my illusion is coupled to power, it becomes the most distorted and the most dangerous of illusion. Without any self-knowledge, I have nowhere to stand, and seek to hide behind intimidation of selected scapegoats and lofty-sounding ideologies. In my righteousness I will point to easy victims and will start lashing out at anyone or anything that I think of as a threat or the cause of my pain and suffering. Those others over there. Layer upon layer of paranoia and irrational behavior infect the intellect and poison the waters of life. We cannot sit safely on the sidelines pointing the finger at the Banner Brigade, because this virus of paranoia and fear has not only infected world leaders. Even within the Church, the call to orthodoxy, understood as right thinking, becomes another weapon of discrimination, hate, exclusion and domination. There appears to be an innate violence within us that seeks to destroy our enemies. We would seek them crushed, humiliated, purified in their own juices, forever burning in a lake of sulphurous fire as hot as the sun. The ease with which we impose this tortured and irrational view on a loving Creator, whom we call Father, is as impressive as our propensity to erect our many idols. Indeed, tangled roots in muddied water. Jesus was well aware of the difficulty of getting through to people with all their hang-ups and mixed motives. As then, also now, tangled roots in muddied waters. It is no wonder he used the metaphor of ears of corn when referring to our hearing ability. Jesus speaks into his time in history, to a people who are lost, with leaders batty with power and far removed from the lives of the people. Jesus speaks to the people in the language and images that are close at hand. Jesus invites his listeners to watch the farmer as he sows. The onlooker may have the impression that he is just throwing away both the seed and his energy. It is difficult to see how anything could grow in any unprepared field. Having sowed the seed, the farmer ploughs, paths are marked, thorns and weeds are uprooted, stones are removed, and the field that seemed so unproductive will soon be covered by ears of corn. Jesus tells this parable at a difficult juncture in his life. He's been thrown out of his own town of Nazareth. At Capernaum, they treated him as if he were mad. The Pharisees want to get rid of him. His disciples are leaving him. His preaching seems to have fallen on deaf ears. Conditions are unfavorable, and his word seems destined to die. Jesus is teaching us that despite all obstacles, this word will yield abundant fruit, because it holds in itself the irresistible force of life and the light for the nations. The coming of the Messiah was not a glamorous event. His presence in the world went almost unnoticed. He did not bring about any social or political change among his people. The Baptist was far more widely known. Yes, Jesus disappeared like a little seed, weak, insignificant, almost invisible. And yet slowly but surely it began to grow. His gospel began to penetrate the world. Let us think of that power that the gospel stores within itself. It is like a seed. Jesus is halfway through his public life, and he realizes that very few people have accepted his message. Is it surprising? No, says Jesus. The prophets of the Old Testaments were not listened to. In Isaiah's time, for instance, people blocked their ears so as to not hear the word of God, and hardened their hearts and refused to listen. Jesus speaks in parables in an attempt to break through this unbelief. A parable forces us to seek out its hidden message, to think, to meditate. It invites us to look at ourselves, and so leads us to conversion. The interpretation of the parable tells us about the difficulties the Word of God encountered in the early Christian church, and still does today. We may feel tempted to list people we know and decide which group belongs to which. Let us not waste our time trying to classify our neighbors. St. Jerome reminds us and warns us that we should not judge that which is in the hands of God. The 4 types of soil are to be found to a greater or lesser extent in each one of us. In each of us there are thorn stones, hard roads, but there is also good soil. We must be aware of this, and to improve our own field, our own heart, so that the Word of God may produce its fruit within us. A little bit of gentle kindness showed here, and the light burns through some weeds. Patience and humility in the presence of disrespect and scorn, and the light and the fire consume a little more of the lichen. We suspend our anxiety and despair to bring hope to a stranger, and the moss also withers in the flames. We let go of our restless striving to encourage another, and the light continues to grow and pulsate within us. The Lord grant you peace.